Hey everybody, today I'm taking a look at Sagrada, which is a 2017 release board game that takes about 30 to 40 minutes to play and accommodates 1 to 4 players. Now the idea of the game is that we are supposed to be stained glass maker artisans who are making their own stained glass window by drafting dice onto their individual player boards. So the way the game works is that every round a bunch of dice is rolled, and then in player order you're going to draft one of those dice and place it onto your player board. And the way you draft is quite interesting because it's not done in a standard player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4, player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4 method. It's done in a snaking method, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you've got the first opportunity to draft a die, you're also going to go last as well. So, making the right decision at the right time is quite important. But what you're trying to draft those dice for is for a number of reasons, because there is going to be some public scoring objectives which are going to basically grant you your points at the end of the game, and they can be criteria such as having all different colours of dice in a row or a column, or different pip values. So obviously you've got your different numbers on the dice and columns and rows, you've got diagonals, you've got all different things such as pairs of numbers, and as I said, lots of different scoring criteria. And every game, only 3 of those scoring cards are going to be scored. So you're going to get quite a lot of replayability in terms of what you're actually trying to achieve game to game. There's also tool cards available to be used, which let you kind of manipulate your player board, or let you manipulate the dice when you draft them, such as by re-rolling them, or moving things around, or switching dice with ones that have been kind of passed on previous rounds. So there's a bit of mitigation there, but there's also further restrictions because on your individual player boards you are subject to a number of restrictions, such as not being able to place the same color of dice or the same pip value of dice in an orthogonal method. So you can't have 2 number 1 dice right next to each other, or again 2 yellow dice right next to each other, or anything like that. There's also inbuilt restrictions into your own player board, such as certain spots, I should say really, your player board is a 4x5 grid basically. And some of those spots on that grid are kind of pre-filled with a certain color or a certain pip value, meaning that you have to, you're obliged to place a die of that value on those spots. So you are subject to that restriction as well. But some of the tools again let you mitigate that. So yeah, that's essentially how the game's going to flow. It's just trying to take the right dice at the right time, trying to fill your board in the most the most point efficient way. Trying to get as many points as you can. At the start of the game, you're also going to be given a secret objective card, which is going to score you points based on a certain color dice's pip value. So for example, if my secret color was green, then for all the pips on the green dice that I've drafted in the game, I'm going to score a point for. Now that for me is one of the small pitfalls of the game, because sometimes that can be quite swingy, because some colours have, or just naturally constantly roll high numbers, and your secret colour might only keep rolling low numbers. And again, there's quite a significant amount of points available through that method. So again, it can be quite swingy and can determine the winner of the game in quite a dominant way. But other than that, the game is so streamlined, so straightforward, and easy to digest that it's an absolutely wonderful family weight game. It's almost like a Sudoku puzzle. The drafting of the dice is very, it's a very tense moment, because you're going to strongly want certain die values, but you might be second or third in player order, and you've got to wait, stressfully as other players take the dice that you want, and you have to constantly reevaluate. You've got to be careful about when you're going to use those tool cards at the right time, because at the start of each game you are going to have your own kind of your own player board has a number of different slide-in cards that you can do, which determine all the different restrictions you've got on your player board, and some of them are a lot harder than others. The easy ones obviously are easier to fill in, but you are going to get less tokens to use on the tool card. So the more difficult your player board is, the more of these kind of opportunities to use tool cards you have. But every one of those they're kind of like marbles or glass beads, and if you don't use them, you're going to get a point for each one you don't use. So there's that incentive as well, whether you can get by without using them, or if you're actually going to use them, because using them is important first because you actually get to do it at a cheaper value, because when you first use a tool, it's only going to cost you 1 of your glass beads, but if somebody uses it before you, then it's going to cost you 2. So, you know, if you're using those tools first is going to be a lot more cost effective, but again, you're sacrificing points at the end of the game. Again, mechanisms wise, yeah, absolutely fantastic. A great family weight game that you can, you know, with a very low rules overhead, and yeah, so there's nothing there that doesn't need to be there. Time investment as well is really good. I mean, this game only consists of 10 rounds, and each of those rounds you're going to be drafting 2 dice, so you know the rounds do fly by very quickly. I've never had a problem getting this played in under half an hour, and the box is, I think, 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, it's a nice timestamp of a game. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It's constantly engaging, and you know, the turns do fly by really quickly. Replayability wise is pretty damn good, to be honest. There's obviously all the secret objective cards, which again, they're just a different color each, but you know, it's something to focus on. You've got all the different player boards, and there's lots of them. You can slide into your own kind of cardboard frame, which represents like a stained glass window, which is really cool. Yeah, so there's loads of those, lots of different ones to try out. If you want to try a more difficult one, then you can. If you want to keep it easy, then you can. Obviously, there's all the different scoring criteria available. There's all the different tools. So there's a lot of different, you know, variability to enhance the replayability of the game, which can keep you coming back again and again and again. The interaction is just, you know, it's very tense in this game because sometimes it's indirect as well, because obviously everybody's drafting from the same pool of dice, and inevitably people are going to want the same dice as you and take it before you, so you know, you are subject to what other players are doing, and it's also the use of the tools as well. Getting them in there before other players can be quite important at times. So the interaction is somewhat indirect, but it is, you know, it does have its importance in the game. Aesthetically, the game is absolutely stunning to look at. I mean, the whole theme of the stained glass window just works really well. The production is great. You know, all the dice in the game are translucent and really well made. It just looks absolutely great once your player board is made. You know, the player board frames look fantastic, and it's one of those games where the theme just works so well without trying too hard. It's just really understated but still striking at the same time. So I love the production, I love the visual quality of the game, and it just has that mass market appeal in my eyes that's just going to be really eye-catching and just grab players' attention. The theme of the game, again, really unique, completely original idea, and I love the way that the theme and the mechanisms and just the look of the game come together. And setup and teardown time as well is pretty damn good, because you're just going to have a bag of dice which comes with the game, which you're going to obviously pick a certain amount from each round. Set up your player board, set up the objectives, and set up the tools, and you're pretty much good to go. So there's not really much issue there with setup or anything. The progression of the game as well is pretty good, because obviously as the game goes on and on and on, the restrictions are getting tighter and tighter and tighter as you are limited to what you can place and where. And yeah, so that puzzly aspect to it really shines through as the game develops. Scalability as well is really good, because the pool of dice is limited to the amount of players. So every round a number of dice is rolled equal to the number of players plus 1. So in a 4-player game, it would be 9 dice that are rolled. In a 3-player game, it would be 7 dice, and so on. So you know, it's a tight pool of dice no matter how many players are playing the game. And comparisons to the game as well, there's a lot of dice drafting games out there, but this one I think is a real entry level point to it, and there's a kind of natural progression of games that you can go through if you do really like the dice drafting. You know, you've got games like Roleplay, which is probably slightly heavier than this one. You've got games like Coimbra, which is a kind of a more Euro-y style game, a middleweight game. But if you really like that dice drafting mechanisms, you can go into really heavier games such as Trismegistus. So this is a good kind of a game to dip your toe into that genre of games, the dice drafting, which happens to be one of my favourite mechanisms in all games. So this one is a great jumping on point, and a really great gateway game of that genre. So yeah, overall, I really think this game is a great family weight game. I really would strongly advocate, you know, players who play games with their families or play games with non-regular games to give this one a try. And in the same vein as that, this one still does have enough going on in it to satisfy more experienced gamers. But I don't think it'd be one that you'd probably consistently bring out to the table if you are only playing with experienced gamers. in all honesty, I've played this game more than 20 times now, and I think I'm pretty much done with it. I mean, I've really enjoyed my plays with it, but I've got no real incentive to go back and play it anymore. But I don't want that to be a negative, because I very rarely play games 20 plus times, and so that's actually a really strong positive of the game. Personally, I would still play this game with, you know, my girlfriend or my parents who aren't really into heavier games like I am, but because if I am to play a dice drafting game myself, I'd rather play something like Coimbra or Trismegistus, as I said earlier. But yeah, this one still has enough going on in it to satisfy those. I rate it about a 7. I put it at a 7.2 out of 10, which is a good verdict for me, a really solid verdict. But if I was looking through this at more objective eyes, if I had a family of my own, of children or anything like that, I would easily rate this an 8+. Again, I strongly recommend it. There's really no fault of the game at all, to be honest, apart from that slightly swingy, you know, personal objective scoring. And also, I'm colourblind. This game isn't very colourblind friendly. The purple and blue dice are almost impossible to differentiate for me, so that's a slight issue if you are colourblind. But yeah, overall, really not much I can say but positive about this game. I think it's really fun, quick, engaging, beautiful to look at, and a great jump on point for dice drafting games. So definitely check out Sagrada. It was a big hit in 2017 and going into 2018, and rightfully so, because it is an absolute delight of a game. So that concludes my review of Sagrada. I hope you've enjoyed the review. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. You can also support me on Patreon and follow me on Instagram, and I'll leave the links below for those. So for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.